This episode of the Out of Bounds podcast is sponsored by Fisher Skis, and you can visit them at www.fishersports.com. Did I get you? Why does the Wi-Fi suck? Hello. This is the Out of Bounds podcast. My name is Adam Jabber, and we have a fantastic episode for you today with a reoccurring guest, Nikolai Schirmer. I really love talking to this dude. I've said this a million times, but he's one of my favorite guests to have on. He's a great talker. He's a great storyteller. And there's a lot to talk about. We kind of talk about he's got 2 new films dropping this fall. WAVY 2, which is the sequel to WAVY, which if you haven't seen, you should go watch right now. And then EULOGY of a SKIER, I believe is what he called it. I just want to make sure before I actually tell you that. EULOGY of a steep skier is what it's called. I got the name wrong like 4 times, so it is what it is. We're rolling with it. Anyway, Nikolai is one of my favorite people to have on the show. We talk about his gear. We talk about the progression of ski gear in general. We talk about living in Norway, what that's like. We talk about, obviously, the new films and what he likes in ski movies, and why he feels like his stuff is a little different, what's different about it in general. And then, obviously, we talk about things like getting paid in the ski industry and why that shit sucks. And we kind of go deep on a lot of stuff here. So thank you to Nikolai, as usual, for spending the time with me. The dude's a gem. So enjoy the episode. Few things before we get started and roll into some ads and then the episode. Michelle Parker's new show, Care Less Do More, drops tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Monday, if you're listening to it any other day, it is out now. Episode 1 is out in the wild of Care Less Do More, so please go listen to that show. Support Michelle, support what we do here, and enjoy it. I mean, she's such a good interviewer. She's such a good talker. Already a better interviewer than me on day 1, so enjoy. Obviously, listen to the other shows on the network as well. In the Pursuit, Coffee and Van Chats, and then Big Stick Energy. Michelle's show will be alternating with Big Stick on Tuesdays, so keep that in mind. On the YouTube front, if you're interested in watching the interviews, they are filmed in the studio. Super high quality. We're getting the formula down a bit here, so all of those interviews as of late are available at the Out of Collective YouTube channel, as well as weekly news segments, which is a thing that we're doing now, gear reviews, which we've gone heavy in, as well as some other fun stuff. So get on it. Gear guides are shipping. That's also a thing. There's a lot going on. My head's spinning. My head is spinning, and I am tired. But other than that, we're having a great time, and we will see you guys in a million different places this fall and winter. Before we jump into the episode, we have to pay for bills. Pay for bills? We have to pay bills? Is it pay for bills or pay bills? Pay bills. Number 1, our friends at Gravity Grabber are a sponsor of the Out of Bounds podcast and the Out of Collective. They make the best ski storage solution on the market. It's been around for a while. You can hold everything from your skis, your snowboards, your broomsticks, your rakes, your arms, whatever you want. You can hold on to just about anything with a Gravity Grabber. So you can go to gravitygrabber.com and use promo code Out of Bounds and save 15% off of your purchase. And honestly, it's just the thing you need. If you have kids, if you have skis, if you have snowboards, if you have things that need hanging and storage, get it. It's also really nice because it comes with these neat little ski cleaning thingies, like little cloths so you can clean your skis so your stuff doesn't rust, and it all will hang dry, which is pretty dope. So check out gravitygrabber.com. Once again, use promo code Out of Bounds. Save yourself 15% off, and you can buy them in a 1-pack, 2-pack, 3-pack, or a 6-pack. Cool. Next, our friends at Mammut are a sponsor of the Out of Bounds podcast. Ethan already knows where I'm going with this. It is avalanche safety. They are the very best when it comes to buying a new beacon, when it comes to buying a new avalanche safety product, whether it's a beacon, shovel, or probe, or an airbag. This stuff is point blank the best. Right? That's it. End of story. You can go to mammut.com and use promo code OUTOFBOUNDS25, capital O, capital B, 25 to save 25% off on your purchase. This is a ridiculous deal, and if you're not taking advantage of it, that is on you. If you decide to buy one at $500 in the regular season, that is on you. And I don't feel bad because we're giving you 25% off right now in prime sell-through season. So Mammut.com, promo code out of bounds 25, capital O, capital O, capital B. Stay safe out there. Okay, cool. Woodchuck. A lot of ads today. Look at that. Ethan lining up the ads back to back to back. Hopefully these are interesting enough ads that people actually listen to. I think they are. Sometimes I think I'm funny. This is maybe not one of those times, but I'm funny. I'm funny sometimes, I think. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe no one thinks I'm funny. I'm sad. Woodchuck.com. Go to Woodchuck. Check out all of the offerings that the wonderful people at Woodchuck Cider and Woodchuck Hard Cider have to offer. They have everything from Granny Smith, Amber, Prosecco, Sangria, Rosé, Raspberry, Pear, as well as Bellini. What else they got, Ethan? Ethan, can we get some new flavors here? They got blueberry. What else they got? There's a million different flavors here. Dark and dry. I don't know what that one is. What is that? Does it say? Traditional semi-dry apple. Wow, I can't read. It's literally right in front of me. Woodchuck is a Vermont-based company, and obviously they make some super high-quality Vermont product. So check it out. Must be 21 years of age or older to consume this product, because obviously there's alcohol in it. So that's what makes it a hard cider. That's what makes it a hard cider, in case you were wondering. But gluten-free, accidentally, since 1991. I'm just reading stuff off the screen at this point. But check out the wonderful people at Woodchuck. You can visit them in Vermont at their cidery. You can also purchase it at most beverage stores at this point in time. So check it out. And that's it for today. We'll see you guys after this one, or I guess I'll see you during the episode if you're watching the YouTube bit. But for now, enjoy this conversation with my friend, Nikolai Schirmer.
So I'm Nikolai Schirmer. I'm from Norway. I'm a skier and I'm a filmmaker. I make a bunch of like short films, longer films, put them up on YouTube, do some collaborations with like regular production companies, Matchstick, Utility, that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely like combining skiing and video production and then showing people what I do on the mountain.
Nice. You really like the video production side still, right? Like that's a thing that you actually enjoy doing?
Yeah. I'm having a ton of fun with it. Like, I mean, the volume of it can get to me, like just the amount that I'm doing sometimes. But I love I love it. I'm sitting with a project right now, which is just so much fun. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So you have two projects that are coming out this year. One is coming out October, right? And one is coming out in December?
Yeah. So there's like a bit of a content package being rolled out now. So there's EULOGY of a Steep Skier, which is a short film about someone like a steep skier, maybe two, who knows? And it's 23 minutes long. It's going to come out October 24th on my channel. It's currently on tour, like on physical screenings. And then we're doing the sequel to WAVY. Yep. So last year we did WAVY, the first WAVY, the last voyage of Sophia and Captain Crocs. And now WAVY, the voyage to the end of the world, is coming out in December, which is like a longer movie, like a full scale movie from a trip to Svalbard. And then in addition to that, I'm also doing a web series that's going to come out on my channel. That's like 5 episodes, like 15 minutes kind of. That's going to come on my YouTube channel like every week after the EULOGY film is dropped.
Okay. So all of this was filmed last season, yeah?
Yeah.
So you managed to recover from an Achilles injury, a horrible crash to start your season, and film all this stuff last season.
Yeah. But I mean, I have like my way of making ski films is kind of different, I think, because I'll go out and I'll tell the story of one day in the mountain and make a film about that. Right. Whereas, my buddies who are making more like traditional ski films, they'll put like 2 days into getting 5 seconds.
Right.
So I think, so yeah, I wouldn't like give myself the biggest pat on the back. It's just a different production method, kind of.
I guess, but you're putting out like the same kind of stuff that people are working all season for in like a few days of like filming, I guess, right? Like you're telling the story of one day, like you just said. So it's different than people who put together like this whole traditional ski film. And obviously it's a different thing. It's a different feel. It's like it's like your point of view of a trip or an adventure or whatever. It's a different thing, but it's kind of the same. Like, you're still touring it, you're still gonna put it out, and there's still gonna be some sort of premiere for it.
Yeah, totally. No, and I'm really stoked on the content this year. We've done some really cool stuff, had some really cool trips, and yeah, there's drama, there's friendship, there's good skiing, bad skiing, all kinds of stuff. Like, there's one episode with my little brother. He has this thing where he wants to join the ski movie production. So I have the Bring Your Brother to Work week every year. And last year he tried to come out. He broke his hand like the first day. Went to the hospital. Had to call mom. Like, hey mom, sorry, little brother went down. And then this year he tries to come out again, and he falls down. He fell like 1,200 feet down a mountain. Like,
What?
it was pretty gnarly. Yeah, it was the longest fall I've ever seen. Like, you sit, envision like a proper Alaskan, like big mountain face. And I'm there with Jakob Wester. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
And some other guys, and we're up there, and Severin is joining. He's a good skier, but it doesn't ski all that much. And he's 22 at the time, and we're up there, and I'm telling him like, okay, you've never done this before. I know there's like 2 drones and a camera person, and like there's obviously pressure. Like, Jakob's here, he's a legend, but like, just take it easy, just don't fall, okay? And he just like goes all in, like charging like 100%. And the start is like steep. You're talking like 50%, like fluted, spiny thing. And he just sends it and does like 5 turns, high sides, loses both his skis and tomahawks like the whole mountain. So yeah, there's some interesting moments in this season's content for sure.
How scary is that for you? Like, to watch your brother tumbling 1,200 feet? Like, that's not great.
It was so scary. Dude, it was so scary. And it took a while, right? He fell for almost a minute, like 54 seconds. We timed it. And at the start, I was just like, making this like Instagram story with my phone, like, yeah, bro, keep going. And then he just like falling, and I'm like, oh, he's falling. That's kind of funny. And then like he just keeps falling. I have to put the phone away and be like, oh, I can't film my brother falling to his death. That's gonna be terrible.
Oh my God.
But no, luckily he was all good, and yeah, he didn't have like a single scratch. He was totally fine, 100%. And like the next day, we just go to the resort and like cruise around the piste, and he falls on a roller and like he hurts himself like way worse. So I think it's funny. Like, I don't know. I feel like it can look super gnarly and still be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of that shit is terrifying. Like, I rewatched WAVY a few weeks ago, and I was like, that's actually when I reached back out to you, because I was like, okay, we should talk again. Like, this was really good. The first time I watched it, it was almost like I watched it in prep. So like, I didn't actually watch it like a film. I watched it in short bits and like kind of took note of it, whatever. This time I just watched it like front to back. And I actually didn't process the skiing as much as I processed like the storytelling the first time. The second time, I pretty much was like solely focused on the skiing aspect of it. Yeah. And some of that shit that you guys are skiing is so fast. It especially watching Krister ski it or ride it on a snowboard is so fucking terrifying. Like, what? How do you feel
so
when
gnarly.
you're doing that? Yeah, like, how do you feel when you're watching him?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that one couloir in WAVY, the first WAVY is the thing there with the snowboard, you could actually turn your snowboard sideways.
Yeah.
So you did have a little more control. It was too narrow for the skis. But yeah, watching him generally, like, it's super scary. And to me, that's terrifying because I'm such a bad snowboarder. Like, when I watch him, I'm like, holy hell, how are you doing that? And also, you have one edge. I imagine like if your edge kind of gets like a little hit or like a little blow and you kind of lose balance, you're just out. Whereas like I feel like with 2 skis going really fast, I do feel like there's more like leeway in a way, or like you have more of a chance to like recover if one edge kind of gets hit by a chunk or something. But I don't know. He manages to do it, and I've never like seen him take a bad fall. But it's pretty scary, and he has such a strong mentality. Yeah. He'll just go no matter what, and it's super fun to go with him because you push yourself, and I know that whatever I can ride, he can ride, sort of thing.
Right.
So it's really good to have that support in the mountain of someone who's like at a really high level, because I can always ask him like, do you think this is even possible, like physically, to like lose your speed there or do that turn or whatever? And I know that his assessment is like valid and true. Whereas like I have my other friend, Thor, and whenever I ask him if something's possible, he's like, "You're gonna die for sure. Don't do it." And with Krister, it's like he's like, "Yeah, you might be able to be okay," and that's good.
Yeah, it's good to have that to bounce off of. So it kind of seems like in Wavy 2, or not in Wavy 2, in Eulogy of a Skier. Yes. It seems like you guys are on opposite trajectories almost, like where he's trying to go steeper and steeper and more aggressive, and then there's like this clip where he calls you soft, like getting softer year after year. It's like with a girlfriend, he goes soft. Without a girlfriend, somehow he got softer. Like what? How has that been?
Yeah, so Krister, I will like do a little intro on him. Like, if you don't know Krister, he's like for sure one of like the gnarliest big mountain snowboarders in the world. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see it's like you remember Jeremy Jones, like back in the day when he was like charging straight down Alaska faces. Krister's doing that, but he's touring in like hard boots and climbing all these faces and then sending it down there. So it's pretty wild. And we've been riding together for I don't know, like the past 4 years. Like, it's been pretty much my main riding partner. We've done some pretty cool stuff. But he has sort of had this pull towards, steep skiing and like mountaineering. And I feel like a lot of my partners have that, like in the mountain, in the past as well, especially when I was living in Chamonix for a few winters. And they're sort of pulled into this terrain, and Krister is attracted to this terrain where the consequences are so high. Your whole run is like, it's a 3,000-foot run, and it's all above like a huge, massive cliff, and it's 50, 60 degrees. And it's so gnarly that you end up, you're basically, punching an ice axe, doing like sort of like a jump turn, punching an ice axe, doing a jump turn, maybe a rappel, stuff like that. And so if you make like a wrong turn and you start tumbling, you fall off a cliff and you die. And if you've done any sort of snow assessment that's wrong, you wipe out and you fall off a cliff. And I get the attraction there because you're like, you get to go into these insane places. And I mean, everyone's seen what Andreas Fransson was doing, right? There is this pull towards the mountain in that way. But like, to me, I don't get the reward. So I've been in those situations, I've done those kind of runs, the classic runs in Chamonix and around Norway and wherever. And I just feel kind of empty when I come down after something like that. I feel, just like, oh, I survived, sweet. But whereas when I ride free ride, when I do like a fast line, do some airs, big slashes, and like on the edge, I'm like, oh my God, that was insane. I love it. I'll come down and be like filled with like adrenaline and endorphins. And it's like, that was the sickest shit ever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I didn't have that pull as much as he did. And so Krister this year, he wanted to ride the biggest mountain in Lyngen in northern Norway, the steepest, gnarliest stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to ride more free ride. So we kind of parted ways.
Yeah.
And we had a bit of a partner breakup, if that makes sense. Mountain partner breakup. So this film is like, it's like a buddy romantic comedy about our breakup and then possibly getting back together. There's all kinds of stuff happening. We break up, it's sad. And then I get a new partner, he gets a new partner, but then the conditions line up for both freeride and steep skiing in this glacier zone, where the biggest mountains are for both things. And we end up both going there with our new partners. And then we're in this situation, where, you split up with your girlfriend, you go on holidays with your new girlfriend, and then your ex arrives with her new boyfriend, and you're like, well, that's weird. And then we're up there, and they're trying to do their thing, we're trying to do our thing, and his thing is so gnarly, and we're just kind of playing around and having fun. So that plays into his mentality, and then all kinds of stuff happens. I'm not going to spoil the movie, but maybe there's a happy ending, maybe not.
Yeah. It was really well done. I thought it was really well laid out, and it's not that long, but it's long enough where you're like, this is a full on story. And I feel like I say it's not that long, but it's longer than a lot of the stuff that I've watched already for ski movies, because, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like ski movies are getting shorter, like especially when people put them out like their season movie or whatever. Like Parker put his thing out, something, and it's only like 5 or 6 minutes, and you're like, okay, this is weird, because the first one was like 12 or 15, and the second one was about 12 or 15, and then the next one is 5. But I've seen I went to Level 1 on Friday, their film premiere, and it seems like everything that was there was sub 8 minutes. So I don't know. In my head, it's like it's short, but it's actually not short because like you're telling this long story almost. But I guess that's kind of what you need to do to frame it. But I almost feel like I could watch it over and over. Like I could keep watching that story play on, right?
Yeah, thanks. But I agree. Things are getting shorter, and like, but I think it has to do with like narrative structure too. Like, if honest personally, I do feel like pure action kind of gets boring after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what these other guys are feeling too. So they compress their work.
yeah,
And with this eulogy film, it's more like the action kind of it's there, but it's not the main story. It's just kind of, or it is in a way the main story. It's like what we're trying to do are these lines that you see in the movie. That's what we're, living for and working for and everything. But yeah, I think the thing that kind of draws it out is this other story like that you can watch. And it's only from, we're only up there for 4 days.
yeah.
The whole film is only 4 days. So it's, and then again, with some backstory. But yeah, glad you liked it. That's good. You want to entertain. That's the goal here, right?
It was good. Yeah, like that's the thing, and I think you make a good point, right? It's the skiing is like the climax of it in a sense, but the storytelling is what keeps you there and keeps you wanting more, like because you feel like you could keep listening to this kind of stuff. It's almost like when I listen to an interview that I'm really engaged in, right, and it ends, I'm like, okay, like I could still listen to this for another 2-3 hours or whatever, right? It's kind of the same feeling in the way that you're telling stories in video form.
Yeah, thanks. Then it's working. That's good.
It's working.
And it's interesting. You have this arc in the film. Like at first, I get to a point. I feel like the story is me and Kristen and our relationship back and forth. And then I got to a certain point in the film and like in the edit where that had been resolved, but kind of the last big mission, like ski wise, hadn't happened yet. But then when like the story element had been resolved, I was like, oh, now I can't really like throw it out anymore. I kind of have to cap it here. Like the story is actually over. And I kind of have to fast forward a little bit to get to this last little skiing. Whereas if just the skiing was the story there, I would have probably maybe drawn it out a little bit more and like built up that last objective, maybe over 2-3 more minutes just to frame it more. But then I felt in this edit, like that isn't actually the story. The story here is mine and Krister's relationship.
Yeah. No, I like that, and I think that's very much how it came across. So I think that's good. I think people will attach themselves to that really well. But I guess on the storytelling aspect of it, are there other like film companies in skiing that you're seeing do this kind of thing? Because I feel like people used to do this a bit, right? Like there's always the classic Warren Miller whatever, and they do like the little voiceover, and like that's okay. It's not really storytelling. It's just kind of framing a situation. But I feel like in Claim, for example, it was like from 2008. Like I always remember this movie because there's bits and pieces where either Colby West is like kind of transitioning it and he has his story and he's like telling stuff throughout the film. And then there's also, before they go in to ski whatever they're about to ski, you get like almost like these athlete interviews. So it kind of frames everything a little bit different. But I feel like over the last few years, that's happened less and less. So I don't know. Do you like other film companies and what they put out for this, like in the same way that you do things? Or I don't know, like what attracts you to what other companies do?
Well, I guess like my main inspiration is actually, I mean, obviously I watched all the ski movie big companies as a kid, of course, but like for this kind of more story-centered approach, it's actually climbing movies. Renan Osterk, and like Jimmy Chin and those guys. Yeah. Inspiration for the style of production that I'm doing now is like, yeah, Renan Osterk, Jimmy Chin, this sort of generation of climbing filmmakers and how they've been doing. That's been a huge inspiration for me. And like I've been like basically ripping off a bunch of stuff that they've been doing. But yeah, and I do like other ski films when there is story. I just think like the story of, oh, it's sick, we're skiing POW.
Right.
It's not us. That's hard to tell. That's super hard to tell. That's like, okay, that's not super interesting. And maybe that's why other people are cutting more of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of goofing around. But because I think you need like a few elements to tell a story. Like you need maybe some conflict in between some people.
Yeah.
You need goals. Like, okay, what are we actually trying to achieve here? What
Right.
are the characters in this film, like where are they going, like, and what kind of struggles are they facing on their path towards the goals that they have? And when the goal is just to have fun and do sick shit, and you do that from the first frame, then you already achieve your goals, and it's kind of flat in a way.
Right. Yeah, it's
And
like
then
it's a high bar, but
it's
it's
really
flat.
hard. Yeah. Sorry.
No, yeah, it's like a high bar, but it's flat the whole time. Like there's not really like there's no peak in it.
Exactly, exactly. So I think to actually have, yeah, like a narrative arc, you need to like start at some kind of, yeah, starting point, and you got to work towards some kind of peak. And the good thing about skiing, and especially ski touring, is that you are working towards a very physical peak. So
Right.
it's easier to tell that story, you know.
Right.
And you're always, and you have all these struggles. You're concerned about the weather, you're concerned about the snow, you're concerned about the line you're going to ride, etc. So there's all these elements that's easy to tie together to tell a story. Whereas if you're working with more of like a traditional part where it's, you know, just shredding, it's yeah, I guess it's a bit harder. And then like I love, you know, like watching Sammy's new edit
Yeah.
every season. I
It's
love that shit. Like that
ridiculous. Yeah.
Forre, the Swedish Finnish crew, young
Yeah.
kids.
Dude, that shit
Norway,
was
did you watch that?
crazy. Yeah, that was so nuts, especially that ender.
Yeah, holy hell! You think it's over,
Yeah.
and it's not, because he's
Yeah.
just gonna go twice as big and do it like.
It's so nuts. Oh my god. Yeah, the crew in Burlington was like blown away by that. Like everybody was just losing their shit, and that's how you know it's like but that's kind of the thing, right? Is with park skiing, you can have like hammers after hammers after like it can just keep going and going and going. With big
Yeah,
mountain skiing, sometimes I feel like it's harder to grasp what they're doing because it's
yeah,
so big. Like they don't understand necessarily the skill. It's not the quality of the skiing that's the problem, right? It's the way that the skiing is told almost
yeah.
is
I feel like, yeah,
is
big
different.
mountain skiing needs context.
Right. Right, exactly. Like look at the 50 project, for example. Like that's the easiest example that I can think of. It's like when Cody does that shit, he's telling a story every episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And people love the 50. 50 is blowing up.
Oh
It's
my god.
cool.
Cody's going to have a career for the rest of his life just doing the 50. He could just do 2 lines a year for the rest of his life and do that.
He should do like the 50, and then they should do like the 150. It- you know, with like Pokemon, when it came out, it was just like, I don't know how many were there, like 50 Pokemon, and then we just add new Pokemons every year or two. It's going to be the same with the 50.
And just start skiing like local ski hills and that's it. He's just going to ski every hill in America. Or it's
Yeah.
that's yeah.
But cool. Yeah, it's super cool to watch Cody stuff too. I think it's cool now with ski films at the high five too. Like, yeah, sure, there's like a lot of traditional stuff, but there's also like a lot of like experimental, kind of weird. Like, there's so much going on, and there's like this. Yeah, there's just like a multitude of different people doing so much different stuff, and I think it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a little more perspective, right? It's an individual perspective more than just like a production company, I guess. And that's more interesting to me. I still think those production companies are really valuable to especially people getting into the sport, right? But when you're in the sport, it's almost like, okay, we get it, right? Like it's very seldom you see something like actually different from one of those companies.
yeah, true. And I think it's like, I think it depends on, because that's one thing I was thinking about too. Because I was in this award, like I got nominated for best short on this festival, and I thought that's cool, thank you. And then I look at the other films, and then it's like Fora, it's Samis film, it's some other films, and I'm like, wow, but it's like we're not even like in the same category, because I'm like, I went out 4 days camping and drinking coffee and having a romantic meltdown with my buddy,
Right.
and these guys are out for a full season, like getting hammers, like getting shooting bangers, and like throwing down, and it's like it's a different thing. I feel like it's interesting. I feel like the purpose of those segments are in a way just what is the best skiing that happened this season.
Right.
It's like a video contest of the best skiing. It's like the skiing is just in the center of it, and also there's beautiful shots. But I was just thinking like this is kind of weird. Like I don't feel like we're doing the same thing in a way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's cool. I'm excited to see everything that comes out at that. So if people don't know the High Festival, it's a festival in Annecy, France, and it's huge. I had no idea how big it was. I think someone told me there was like 30,000 people there or
Yeah, it's
something.
huge.
Just festival area. They have like it's like being at like a music festival.
Yeah.
and they have a whole like cinema with like multiple rooms, all screening like ski films 3 days straight from like morning to night, and everyone's there. Like at least like more like all of the European skiing community and like a bunch of the American side. So I was just like fanboying, going around like, I love your shit. I love your shit. You're amazing. You're so cool. That edit, that trick. Oh my God. Like meeting all my heroes. And then the snowboarders were there who were extra cool.
Yeah.
I was like on the shuttle with Kevin Backstrom, like, oh, you're super cool.
Yeah, a legend.
Yeah. So that was really fun. So if people haven't been, I highly recommend going. And Annecy is like an amazing place.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't been yet. I need to go. I was trying to make it on my schedule this year, but it's just not. It didn't happen. So next year, hopefully, that'll be on the list.
Yeah, you should go. Like it would be huge for networking. And it's like,
yeah,
there's like, I felt like everyone was just like running around I spoke to like 4 or 5 buddies for like getting new sponsors, new agents, like all kinds of stuff happening. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. On that topic, kind of, do you work with an agent at all?
No. I have tried a little bit in the past, but no, I don't. I just think like I have a very personal relationship with most of my sponsors.
Right.
Like Norrøna and Black Rose, we've been working together for like almost a decade, both of them. Like over a decade with Norrøna, almost a decade with Black Rose. And like I know them. Like we talk about how we're doing like physically and like
life.
Everything. Yeah. It's like, yeah, life, we're buddies. And then I feel like an agent would just kind of come in between that. And I tried to bring an agent on just to like bring in like other, I don't know, like mainstream sponsors, stuff like that. But he wasn't really delivering the goods. So I was like, I don't need that. And I also feel like personally, like if like trying to sell projects to brands or like selling yourself as an athlete to a company or like pitch yourself is really, you're fighting an uphill battle.
Right.
Like most of my collaborations and most of the things that I do come from like brands coming to me and being like, hey, we love what you do. We're fans. Let's try to do something together. Because then they have already done that. Oh, that TV in the back happening. Gotta watch good movies on it.
It's okay. Yeah, there's gonna be plenty of good movies.
Yeah, that's what we have roommates for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. What was I saying? Yeah, no. And then because then the brands have already done the work of like allocating budget and like making a plan for this thing happening. Whereas if you come to a brand and they've never heard about you, or maybe they have, but they haven't thought about doing something with you. I mean, generally, there's not like money to spare. There's very few brands, or like very few marketing managers or team managers. They're like, oh shit, I have like $10,000 sitting in my budget here that I don't know what to use, what to spend on. So, yeah, if that process has already happened, it's way smoother to do something after, I think. So,
yeah. It's a weird thing, right? Like, how do you figure out how to even ask for what you're worth? That's the thing that I think people have such a hard time with in skiing. Like, people don't know how to figure out what their value is for something, either as a regular sponsor or for a project.
Yeah. So I think there's two ways in there. I think first you got to recognize, okay, the business model is marketing. Right. That's what you're doing. That's what the product you're selling is marketing, branding, creating a story around the brand. And then of course you can look at how do other people in the industry price that? Like what does a company pay for two-page spread in like a lifestyle magazine or a TV ad, and then you can compare that price, that reach to the reach you have, and like I'll price myself like I'm cheaper than Google Ads. Like when I talk to my sponsors, I'm like, you realize this is a really, really good deal, right? Because what you'll get more sponsoring me and my projects. Like it's cheaper than just buying Google Ads. And then we haven't even like factored in production and not even like what I do on Instagram and events and all these other things. That's just like the YouTube reach.
Right.
It's cheaper for them to put a logo on my thing than to like buy a YouTube ad, like the cost per view. Right. So I don't know, that's kind of what I do. And then also it's just like a human thing, like with the people I work with for filming and stuff, I'll be like, okay, what's the average wage in Norway? Okay, that's that. Okay, well, I'll bump that up a little bit, and then we'll go from that, and then I'll pay you this, like with the people that I hire. So it's like I feel like one thing is the market, like what's the market price for things, and then one thing is like, okay, what is decent, like what does common decency require in paying someone to do some kind of work.
Right.
And I think that's like that's the area where I feel like the ski industry has the longest way to go, because there is a long tradition still ongoing of just not paying people to work,
Yeah.
which is like kind of shady if you ask me.
Oh,
Like,
it's super shady. I don't understand why it's like that. Like, we're a small company and like we pay everybody, right? Like we pay the other hosts, we pay like we just hired an editor and like we put it out. Like we're like, here, this is how much we're paying. Apply for the job, right? Like that's how I want to do things, and I think that nobody else seems like they're doing that kind of shit. It's like, yeah, apply for the job, and then they'll like assess what you're going to get paid based on what they feel like that day.
yeah, that's not, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of bad. And then there's also like, here's another problem in the industry that I'll just point out. Like, I love my sponsors, and this, every brand does this, so it's not like directed at them, but like, there's like every contract, there's like a clause for secrecy. Like, you're not allowed to tell people what you're making. So there's no way for like skiers to actually like legally like figure out like what is the average like paycheck that people are making. But it is hard because you're not actually an employee of these companies, right? You're actually more like an agency selling advertising space and like a marketing service. I think that's the correct way to view it. Like, because what you're selling, you're a billboard, right? So you're selling this service, and if your service isn't reaching very many people, maybe it's not worth that much, and you should have like a side gig. So that's the thing.
Right.
Then it's like, and now I'm if you just listen to what I said the past 5 minutes, you might think that I'm very focused on just the reach and just the marketing and everything. But of course, there has to be integrity. Like, you have to be a quality skier and a quality person for the reach to have an effect, I think.
No,
you know what
people
I mean?
have to like you. Like, that's the point, is they have to actually attach themselves to what you do.
Yeah. And if you're skiing a little bit, but then you're also like doing some cute kitten videos and you get 10 million views a day on TikTok, I'm not sure that actually translates to ski sales, you know?
Right. No,
I actually just had this conversation with a team guy, and we're like, there is a difference to like views and reach. Like, it's not all the same. Not all views are the same. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. They're not. I mean, it's like when we sell stuff to ski brands, it's a very different price than when we sell stuff to like a general outdoor brand, right? Because like, I know we'll sell X amount of skis per year for a company. Like, we work with Fisher, for example, and it's like, I know guaranteed we'll sell no less than 100 pairs of skis a year. Like, I'm like fully certain that that's a fact. So I can go with that number and be like, look, this is the minimum that we'll sell, and that's like on a slow year or whatever, right? Like, we know what we can do. It's very different than like if you want to sponsor us for like tents, like camping tents. I'm not a expert on tents. I just don't know. So it's a different thing.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard because there are these like industry things I work within the industry. Like, I work with a car company, for example, Polestar, great cars. But like, I don't know, like, how many cars do you sell in a season? I don't know. But if you got to sell like 10 cars, that's a huge turnaround, like turnover. So it's like, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. And it is kind of a shame that, I mean, it's not a shame. I don't know. It is strange that you have this business model. I've thought about maybe having like a paywall would be good, or other kinds of ways to do this. And I think there is, for sure. I do see people being frustrated with skill on snow not translating to necessarily opportunity in the ski industry.
Yeah.
And it's this joke, ski good, money will come.
Yeah.
And it's just not true, which is kind of sad. But then I think it's like that. I think it's like that in every aspect of life, in a way. Like, I have this one image of like, so I think like music industry is similar. Like, if you have Beyonce's voice, but you're only singing in the shower, that doesn't translate to value. Like, Beyonce is Beyonce because Beyonce can sing to an audience of 100 million people with her voice.
Right.
Like, her voice alone doesn't hold the value. It's her voice combined with the audience she reaches with it. And I think that's kind of a good way to look at it if you're an up and coming skier.
Yeah.
Like, you need the voice, like, you need the skill, but then also you need the audience, and
Yeah.
to have people enjoy it. Like that's the goal, right? To create pleasure and enjoyment for other people.
Right. Yeah, and it's tough because it's very genuine for when some people do it, right? Like you're creating stuff you love to do and you're telling stories that you love to tell. And that's like people really love that versus like you make a 10-second TikTok that took like, and I'm guilty of this all the time. Like we make some shit and I'm like, this is garbage content, right? And it'll fucking kill. And I'm like, this is the shit I don't want to make. Or like I go and I post a meme, right? And it'll get like reach of 100,000 or whatever. And I'm like, this is trash. I made this like while I was taking a shit this morning, not while I was like actually. And then we'll go and we'll film something that's like beautiful and well done that we're really proud of, you know, and reaches like a couple thousand or something. And it's just it's what the internet wants. And there is a certain level where you're feeding the machine, but you also have to like be conscious of the fact that the quality does matter long term. It's what the people that matter look at, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, and that was like the kindest like words I got this weekend at the Hi-Fi Festival, like from like people that I really look up to would come and say like, "Hey, I love your stuff. It has really high quality. Like,
yeah,
you do good work." And I was like, "Thanks. Like that's kind."
Yeah.
And because I do put effort into the work, but at the same time, you know, that meme that is quality too. That talks to something in humans, and it's like maybe you were taking a shit, got inspired, felt the the aura of the toilet, and then the magic happened. And I don't think that should be discounted either, because I mean, I have some friends, like I'll do a shout out, Elisabeth Mathisen.
Yeah.
Mathisen, she's a local skier in the northern Norway, has like 60,000-70,000 followers on Instagram, I think. And some people like talk shit about her and be like, "Oh, she's just like an Instagram girl, blah blah blah." But I look at her content, I'm like, she put in work here, and she like, yeah, she's sitting on a mountain with a dog in the sunset, but it's graded well. It's a nice composition. She's put it together. She posted it. She wrote a caption. Like, there's work and talent, and she has that reach. And my buddy, who's like a snowboarder drinking beer, it doesn't do that, and then he doesn't like get what she gets. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's very easy to like hate on people's success in social media because it can seem shallow, but a lot of it, like, it takes work, So I give it to like people like like Malou and Kaisa and that whole crew who get a lot of hate for being like Instagram girls of skiing. I respect what they're doing. I think it's cool.
That'll be nice. She's on next week. So Malou's on next week, so I hope she gets to hear this ahead of time. So
give her a high five from me.
I will. It's funny because I look at it sometimes and I'm like, oh, this is trash, right? But at the same time, you're right. It does bring value a lot of times. Like some of that content, it has huge reach, right? And it's like the Beyonce singing or it's like someone singing in the shower, right? It's not. You need both. You need there to be some quality and you need there to be some talent, right? Like there needs to be a solid combination of both things. But to me, it's all about the medium that you decide to put it out in. Like to me, I'm aware that most things that I'm going to put out on Instagram are either going to be like really well thought out and like there's an attention grabbing aspect of it, or it's going to be something that is just simply attention grabbing, but that's important for that medium. The important thing for me is like when we do these kind of conversations, this lives here and this is really important for this particular medium, right? If I just was on a podcast like being an idiot the whole time, it would be, which sometimes, it is what it is, but if I was just doing that, the people would look at the quality of the overall product as opposed to looking at them like individual items. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, totally. And yeah, but talking about memes, I think that's a great development in like the ski media landscape the past year or two or three. Like all these meme pages, it's hilarious. I love it. It's
great.
It's so good. There's even like a local one for like a tiny ski area in Norway. It had good stuff, just really good stuff. And I think it's a good thing.
It's funny. Yeah, I'm in a meme group chat with a whole bunch of like different meme account, and it's like there's also like Cody's in there. Like it's like fucking Cody Townsend is in a meme group chat with a bunch of fucking just people that want to make funny content for the internet and skiing. So it's interesting.
But Cody is the king of the ski meme world.
I know.
He's just like,
he's fully embraced.
if he makes posts of an episode, he'll get like 20 meme pages, like just boom. That's like he doesn't need PR, he doesn't need any agency, he just got the meme world and it's sorted. I love it. And it's super funny too, because he'll be in all these absurd situations, right? With the kind of missions that he's trying to do, and it's very meme friendly. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I'm surprised more people haven't memed you. Like that's a thing that could happen. There's a lot of memeable moments in some of these videos.
There are some memeable moments. There is that one Norwegian page. That's pretty much it. And then like my ex-girlfriend's memes pages, they're all over it. But yeah, other than that, not so much.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I guess kind of back to the storytelling aspect of it. We should probably talk about WAVY 2 also, like not just everything else.
Yeah,
surrounding it. Sure. So why did you feel like there was a sequel needed or a second part to it? Why doesn't it have obviously like there is a connection there between the two films, but why WAVY 2? Why not a different name? And then also, why did you feel like there was a secondary needed to the first project?
Yeah, so the connection between WAVY 1 and WAVY 2 is the boat,
right?
Sophia. It's the same boat. And the story, like summed up, is essentially like I got off the boat in WAVY 1 and I was like, hell no, I'm never going back on that boat again. That was terrifying, uncomfortable. I didn't sleep properly for 2 weeks. There was a storm. There was like, and the boat is really old. So there's like always like some metal like clanking and like waves hitting something. And like the night before, like the big last mission, I didn't sleep at all. Because it had been like super stormy all week, and there's a lot of sound then, just like from the anchor rattling and blah blah blah. And then last night is kind of calm, but then there's like a new sound, and it's like intermittent. It doesn't have like the same rhythm, so you think you're falling asleep to the rhythm, and then it changes. And you're like, oh my god, this is terrible. So I got off the boat. I was sick of it. I was like, this is going to be a cool story to tell my friends and make a movie about, but I'm not coming back on the boat. The Captain Crocs, the legend, who we all love, he was also sick of the boat. So he sold the boat. He was like, I'm leaving Sophia. I'm selling the boat. He sells the boat to Mats Krimseth, who is like a Norwegian sailor, explorer sort of dude. Also like a kind of mental health influencer of sorts, like talk a lot about anxieties and stuff. And so I'm touring around Norway with WAVY, the first WAVY, and he's at one of the shows and he approaches me and it's like, I bought Sophia, we should go to Svalbard. It's gonna be sweet. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not going. He is terrible. I've heard Svalbard is all shit snow and polar bears. I'm not going. And then I talked to my buddy who I'm touring with, Asbjørn, and he's like, no, it's actually pretty cool up there. And he's done a bunch of guiding up there, and he says it's pretty wild with some cool mountains and stuff. And then basically it was that. And Black Rose jumped on board to support the project, also a Norwegian streaming service, Altibox. They're like, you're talking about all the streaming services.
Yeah,
There's another one. So they jumped on board to fund the project. And then we got Celeste Pomerantz from, she's half Norwegian, lives in Squamish, cool skier. She joined from Black Rose, and then we set sail and we sailed up. So Svalbard it's an island, like an archipelago actually, 2 or 3 islands, I think, or like a ton of islands, two or three main ones, but just south of the North Pole. So I think like when the North Pole is like midwinter, it touches Svalbard. And it's like the home of the polar bears and all this stuff. And there's tons of mountains. And we sailed up there we had a plan of skiing one, but then we get up there and like shit starts hitting the fan with like a heat wave and yeah, all kinds of stuff. And it turned into like sort of kind of an experience like the first one. So again, not the most pleasant trip, but a good story.
Are we officially done with the boat? Like, are we done with Sophia? Or are you attached more now?
I don't know. I mean, I was pretty fed up when I got off the boat now too. I mean, now, okay, so the setting is like, there's a heat wave, right? So the snow is just melting everywhere. It's not refreezing at night. So we try to turn the clock around to ski at night because there's the midnight sun. So we think the snow might be a bit more, safer. And so we're like sleeping during the day, skiing during the night, but then someone always has to be awake for anchor shift because there's like swimming polar bears, like they're swimming around. So you have to be like ready in case that happens. And ice, like there's like ice floating around in the fjords, so you got to watch out for icebergs. It's like Titanic, pretty much. So you're not fully like, you never get a full night of sleep. And then if you're also moving during the day, for example, then you have to be on like these 6 hour shifts, so 6 hours on, 6 hours off, and it's just always light out. So you just kind of like go crazy with like, you wake up and you're like, is it? I don't know what time of day it is. I don't know what meal I'm supposed to eat. I don't know when we're going skiing. All the conditions are kind of really challenging, but there's all these cool mountains that we want to do, and we do some cool skiing. Like we end up doing some cool stuff, but it was very, very challenging, and like both mentally, physically, everything. I think like sleep deprivation is like one of the worst things I've been across. And then it's like you have these absurd situations, like we're anchoring on the sea ice, and the captain is gonna like show us how to use a flare gun. And this is a scene from the movie, and it's like, okay, here's the flare gun. So basically, essentially, like if you go on land, you have to have a rifle and you have to be armed because there's polar bears and they'll eat you. And in Norway, it's like very strict with the gun laws, so you need a license to be able to carry the rifles. Only few of us could do that. Asbjørn, the guide, one of the camera, and Matthias, and the captain, Mats. But then we could carry flare guns to like scare off the polar bear. So he's going to instruct like, okay, so here's how you load it, blah, blah, blah. And we're standing there. And then it's like, and then you aim, and you aim not too high, not too low. And then it's like, holy shit, the polar bear is right there. And then the polar bear is like coming towards us while he's like doing this demonstration. You're like getting all our shit together, jumping in the boat. And it's just like this massive, it's the biggest predator, I think, land predator.
That's fucking terrifying.
So terrifying. So I mean, it was a proper adventure, and it's a cool film, and it has a lot of themes. I think the main theme is just like the joy of skiing in a way, and like love adventure, which sounds kind of bland, but as a professional skier, and sometimes when you set yourself like these kind of tricky goals, like going skiing on an Arctic island, you can kind of lose focus of the fun sometimes, like why you actually do it, like your real motivation. And part of this film was like, trying to look into that. And also there's 3 generations of skiers on the boat. So you have Celeste, is sort of like the rookie up and coming hotshot skier. And then there's me, is sort of like, I've been doing it for a few years. And then you have Asbjørn, who's I think him and Stian Hagen used to be he was in a Magic film, I think, way back. And they have like the 2 pro skiers who've been doing it the longest in Norway. And so you have like kind of these 3 generations of skiers in a setting, and then you kind of get to see how we approach risk differently, how we approach just the skiing differently, and just kind of like working with the whole ski industry thing. So there's a lot of aspects in it, and it's just beautiful. Like it's an amazing place.
From the trailer, the setting looks insane. That's one of the things about Norway that keeps getting me to like, this is the 3rd or 4th time that I've talked to somebody. They're like, yeah, go to Norway. Like, it's cool. Like, it's beautiful. Like, it's everything you want it to be. But so let me ask you, as somebody who's been there probably the longest of anybody that I've talked to, what do you like living there? Do you actually enjoy living in Norway? Like, was that, I don't know. Like, sometimes I hear people say it and it sounds more about like, I don't know, the views and like just the existence and how pretty it is. And then I feel like they get over it in a few years or something like that, Like it almost seems like more of a vacation sightseeing destination sometimes in my head than like a place you go to live.
Oh yeah, it's socialist hell, man. Don't go. No. I mean, I've made a conscious decision of living in Norway, like actually staying here and making a life here. I went to Canada in 2017, spent a better part of a season, been living in the Alps for many seasons and traveling all over the world. Like my passions are surfing and skiing. And in a way, I think Norway isn't the best for either.
Yeah.
Like it snows 3 times more in Canada than it does in Norway.
Right.
And the access is touring access is easier here, but like general access is harder, less resorts, no sleds, no helis. The surf is terrible compared to South Africa. But to me, I mean, and part of it to me is obviously I grew up here. I have my whole family. I have a huge like network of friends, and like all the people I love are here. But it's also just like a really pleasant society to live in. Like having it's fairly egalitarian. Like it's had the same process as the rest of the world since the 80s, with like more inequality and stuff, but not as bad. And it's also just rich. It's like I compare it's like the Gulf state of Scandinavia. It's like because we're like a petro monarchy, right? We're literally a petro monarchy. We have a ton of oil money, so it's like uh, most people are like well off, and if you're homeless, there's a place for you. Like it's basically by choice. If you sleep outside, there are not even shelters. There's like apartments for you if you want a place to stay. So it feels, yeah, it just feels very safe and relaxed, and it's not at like it is competitive to a certain degree, but it's not in the same way competitive as maybe the US, like for colleges.
Yeah.
Like a good example is law school. So in Norway, there's 3 law schools total, and they're all just the same. Like it doesn't matter if you went to one or the other. If you get into law school, you're in law school and you're a lawyer, and nobody cares like where you went to school. So I think I think it's like a little more relaxed than some other places I've been, where I feel like the stakes are higher. Like if you fall on your face in Norway, like in any sort of way, career-wise or physically, like there's free healthcare. You don't fall as far as you could maybe in some other places. So you're able to relax a little bit like that. And I was staying in South Africa one fall, and I met a Brazilian who put it to me really well, because he said like you guys, I guess that goes for a lot of Western countries, but you're like the only guys who know like true freedom, because you can work at like a grocery store for 5 months, and then you can take 6 months off and go surfing, and then you can go home and be fine and like not have to worry about it. And so that's my Norway pitch.
Yeah.
Pay me Visit Norway. I actually did a job for Visit Norway. I could invoice them more.
Probably.
But yeah, that's cool. And then there's obviously stuff that's not cool, like for sure. Like there's stuff about Norwegian culture that bugs me, and like where we put our ski resorts, and all kinds of stuff. But like it's good.
Do you ever look at the US and just get stressed? Like that's a thing that I feel like I don't look at Norway ever, and obviously it's like it's quieter. I don't get the same news. You don't hear about as much stuff going on, but like feels like in the US there's like something dramatically like world ending happening every month. Do you look at things that happen over here like in the news? Like you're involved in skiing, right? So everything kind of comes through your feed the same way from people out here. What is it stressful to you? Like looking at us here?
I mean, the forest fires definitely seem like kind of apocalyptic.
Yeah.
But then again, like I went up to Svalbard, and like the Arctic is for sure like one of the places that get hit the worst by global warming. We had the warmest day ever recorded on our trip, like
really?
Ever. Like that was the warmest day, and I mean that time of the year. I mean, I don't want to criticize anyone, but I do feel like maybe the US is in a bit of a rougher spot right now than say Norway.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my dad's godfather's wife would send us all these journals as a kid. I was reading National Geographic, Scientific American, New York Review books, all this stuff growing up. And I feel like the US is like very progressive, and there's some very smart people over your way, and you have a lot of things going for you. So I think also like one thing is like, I don't think people realize how quickly political change can happen, like both for the worse, of course, but also for the better.
Right.
Like I'm reading the last Thomas Piketty book right now. He made a brief history of inequality or equality, I think. 270 pages, highly recommend it. The best economist of our time, I would say. And he's just telling the story of how Sweden went from a system of where you got to vote based on how much money you had, like how rich you were. So you would have this absurd situation where you had some towns like where one guy had the majority, like of all the people. And they were like, I think they were the most inegalitarian country in Europe, at least in the early 1900s. And then they had turned that around within like a decade or two, and they were the most egalitarian. So I think it's easy to look at, stuff going wrong for a while and get hopeless and forget just, I strongly believe that, it's all in our hands. We can do whatever we want. And I think there's like a lot of positive stuff coming out of the US too. Yeah. I'm pretty hopeful.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's valid. Sometimes I'm like, I get stuck in the rut of like the recent cycle where you're like,
Yeah.
and our memories are so bad, it feels like sometimes, and they're so short that if you just think about what happened in the last 2 weeks, it always feels like the world's ending or the world's the best. Like it's always like super high, super lows. But then you get to this point where you like kind of take stock of where you're at and you're like, okay, this actually wasn't so bad. Like this year was actually pretty okay. I mean, sometimes you look back and you're like, all you remember is all the shit things, but it definitely feels like even on years when things feel like they're ending, there's some positive.
For sure. And like people will be like, economic growth is slowing down, technological advance isn't happening as rapidly as before. I'll be like, I'm on an e-bike. I'm on an electric mountain bike. I'm pedaling with 4 times the power I have. I'm going up the mountain. It's amazing. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of good things happening. And that cycle you're talking about, I think is Rutger Bregman. He's a historian, Dutch historian, writes good books. He has this thing where like if the news cycle was like every 10 years or every 100 years, might have been Pinker's. Anyways, no matter who said it, if the news cycle was every 10 years or 100 years instead of every week, you'd be like, okay, every 100 years, well, we have like poverty levels have gone like way down. People are living 50 years longer than they used to. We're dealing with, I don't know, all these diseases. Like just looking at my dad, he's a doctor, he's a cardiologist, does hearts, and he's been working in Northern Norway since I guess the late 80s. And just like in his career, like people aren't really dying anymore of the stuff that he was like treating when he got into it. It was like he says when he started med school, doctors had like just started saving more people than they were killing, like literally, like with their treatment. and then a career later he's about to retire. They're like people almost aren't dying of the stuff that he was treating, and now they're dying of cancers and stuff like that come later that are just sort of the processes that we can't really stop, just genes failing. So I don't know, but yeah, it's hard sometimes. Especially, I think the most terrible thing I hear about from the US is those school shootings.
Yeah,
those sound just terrible.
Yeah, it happens
like
so much.
Yeah, and we had one incident like that with this right-wing extremist like 10 years ago. Shot like 70 kids, I think, and but we had one, and I feel like you guys have like one every week or something.
It's a lot. I don't know the numbers, but it feels like it's all the time, and it's almost like you're desensitized to it to a point.
Yeah, and then it's good, then you have skiing, which is cool, but then you hear about like how skiing is becoming inaccessible to so many people.
Yeah,
because it's becoming so expensive and all that stuff. So yeah, I think there's for sure some issues, but I think, I don't know, I think if you take the long perspective and you see where the debate is at, on how to run businesses, how to tax the very richest, how to deal with global warming, even take like global warming in Norway now, every single political party is like, we're going to solve it. And sure, like the far right, they're going to solve it by making China emit less, but they're all going to solve it.
Right. And
that's a huge step. 10 years ago, there was like nobody was going to solve it. Yeah. So it's I think things are going the right direction. I think one thing that isn't like fully going as fast though is like, when is the next new like revolutionary ski design going to come?
Never.
We got the camber rocker. Yeah,
we're it. That's it. It's done.
Yeah, I think so. Because I feel like surfing has come to that spot where it's kind of stagnated, right?
Yeah.
In a way. And you're kind of playing around with like, it's kind of the design, but it's pretty much the same. And I wonder if we're there with skiing, like if physically way something can float. Yeah, that's the thing, because you can make it lighter, but then you don't have the same dampness. It's so hard. Yeah.
Yeah, you just
I think binding, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot there. What do you ski on for binding mostly?
So yeah, that's a fun, more ski-related topic. I switched to Dynafit this season, and I skied on the Rotation 14 a lot. And then I thought, like, okay, that's interesting. This is the sort of where pin touring bindings have come the past 10 years. It has forward pressure. It has a rotating toe piece, so that if you get multiple hits and your heel starts to drift and your heel piece starts to open up a little bit, your toe still stays clamped. So it's has way more attention. So I didn't have any pre-releases at all, like none at all this season. But then I was thinking, okay, so this has a lot of cool features that my first touring binding, my first pin touring binding didn't even have brakes. So I was like, I wonder where the technology has come, like in terms of, if I take the solutions from my first touring binding, where are we at in weight then? And so I got this binding, it's called the Superlight 150, which weighs 150 grams, which is nothing. It looks like nothing. It looks like someone put like a single nail into your ski.
It's not a binding. It's like a it's like a clip.
Yeah, it's like a bikini compared to a burqa, you know?
Right.
It's nothing. And then I tried this, I ski on it a little bit, and I'm like, wow, it actually works. And I took this binding on like some massive, like the big mountain face my brother fell down, the 1200 foot one. I was riding it on those bindings unlocked. And like Jakob was on the cast touring. He was like in the Pivot 18. And I was there on this like tiny, and it held up good. So I was like super surprised.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I just like felt like a shake up my spine just like thinking about skiing on anything scary. Like, no, I'm good. I'm sure it's okay. I'm sure it's okay. And honestly though, like there's a lot of companies that have made huge progress in pin bindings and in touring bindings in general. Like regular, I think alpine bindings are at the same point as skis where they're pretty much there. Like it's not going to get, how much different can it really get, right? It's almost like we're at the point of taking away as opposed to adding things or changing too much. So it's like simplifying those designs. Like Pivot 15, for example, is like a step in the right direction for look, because you're like taking away from that 18 that was so inaccessible for a lot of people. They couldn't even ski it because the din was too high for the majority of people. And then they bring it down a little bit for the 15. And then like the next run, I'm sure will be like a 12 din version of that like metal rotating toe piece. So I don't know, but like pin bindings have a lot, especially those crossover bindings like the Duke and the Shift and like a Frici Tecton, like those things that's where the biggest improvement I think is going to change over the next few years. Like I know Solomon is working on a new one that's supposed to be more aggressive, like a more aggressive version of a Shift.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And I agree with you. Like I did feel very scared atop that face. But at the same time, I was very happy that I was so fresh in my legs, because it's like a 10-kilometer tour in to get there, and you have to climb I don't know many thousand feet, but it's like a big climb. And I felt like I could bring my big mountain skis. Like I was in the Atlas, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Lacrosse like ride ski, but I could make that a lighter setup with this binding. And I think, if you're able to, maybe get the MNC systems a little lighter. Because I feel like right now, the Duke one is like massive and pretty sturdy. Like I saw the Bunch movie. I watched the Bunch movie, Magnus and Alex and the guys were like sending it like crazy on like the most hard-packed big mountain lines. Like it's so gnarly. And they were riding on that and it was holding up great. And I for sure would not trust Superlight 150 on a line like that.
Yeah, right.
But I do think I would trust the rotation for a team. So I don't know. I feel like the public also has a way to go psychologically and like trusting the gear and like actually, because I had the same reaction when I first got on pin bindings. Like, oh, it looks so flimsy. But then after actually riding it for 10 years, I am trusting it. And it is making my life better in the backcountry because it's just easier and like it's more lightweight and simpler to use. So, yeah. But then Jakob disagrees with me. He's like, he would rather have the peace of mind at the top of the line compared to having fresher legs. He carried extra liners, so we're getting up 10 kilometers up the glacier, 3,000 feet up, and he in his backpack he has carried like extra race liners, because he doesn't want to have sweaty feet, like sweaty liners when he rides his slide. I'm like, wow.
Oh my God. Why? Like, the choices people make sometimes are very, like the differences between people and the type of equipment that they go and they ski on it's so personal for people. But like, I always wonder in my head, like how much it actually makes a difference, you know? Because you see these people and like, actually Andrew Drummond, really good example, like big guy, strong, really good skier, only skis on like Fisher's light as shit. Like pretty much every time I ski him, he's skiing on this stuff that like when I ski it, and he's bigger I'm heavier than him probably, but he's like taller and a better skier than me. I'm like, there's no fucking way. I ski on this shit and I'm like ready to fold the ski in half. It like feels like there's nothing there, but then he goes and he skis like in the whites, or he'll ski whatever and not worried about it at all on like a super light, like on whatever binding he feels like. And it's just so different person to person.
Yeah. And but I think the thing is, like, you can ski almost anything on like the flimsiest of gear. I was riding the old Black Rose like Skimo ski, which is like a 76 millimeter. I don't know how little it weighs. It weighs almost nothing. It's like tiny, a Eskimo ski.
Yeah.
And I took this out for a day in Chamonix because we thought the conditions were just gonna go like mountaineering basically. But then it was kind of how there was some corn snow and like this big, massive, big mountain face. And I was like, I'll take it for a rip. No, it works. You can ski down. You can make turns. I was doing some threes. I was like having fun with it. But it's like, it doesn't give you the support that you will have in a bigger ski. So yeah, I just think it depends on kind of like, what you want to do and what kind of compromises you want to make.
You don't ski the freebird stuff very much, it feels like. Like, I feel like I don't see you in videos very much on that stuff. Why? Like, that actually is some of the better touring gear that exists right now. Like, that stuff skis really well, and that's why they haven't changed it in a while, I feel like.
Yeah, no, like the Corvus Freebird is like a solid ski, but it doesn't have a tail. I have a little bit of a jibber inside, deep down inside. I like being able to go backwards. Yeah. So I prefer the Atris and to me, like with and I have tried a bunch of the skis, and with the way I ski, and the way I've experimented so far with gear, I would rather have a bigger ski and then lighter bindings, because I find that the binding performance to me is binary. It's either working or not working. It's a yes or a no. Either it keeps me in when it's supposed to, releases when it's supposed to, or it doesn't. Whereas with a ski, I feel there's more of a gradient. So I feel like there's like a gradient from a binding ski that works and it's okay and it gets me down the mountain, like the Skimo ski, and a ski like the Anima, which is like a big mountain charging beast that I feel like Superman and send me off any cliff and maybe I'll who knows, but it'll help me stomp it. Whereas with the binding, I don't feel that difference. It's either it works or it doesn't work. And of course, when it doesn't work, you can't use it.
Right.
But up until that point, it works just as well as any binding. Like the Superlight 150, when I skied it on that huge face, it worked just as well for me as the P18 Pivot 18 worked for Jakob. And that's like almost like a 2 kilo difference per ski. I think it's like insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the reason I choose heavier skis and lighter bindings so far. But maybe there's some new stuff in the works. Could be exciting to see what happens this season.
Yeah, I can feel people ripping their hair out as they just listen to you say that.
Yeah,
it's like everybody's, especially the cast people. The cast people are psychos. Like, they think that cast is like the solution to everything, like world peace.
Yeah, and I'll see people put, like a shift on a freebird ski, like a Camox freebird, and I'll be like, "What are you doing? Like, you don't need that. You're not gonna ski that hard." But then, I mean, that being said, there is a safety element to it. I actually had this discussion with Cody.
Yeah,
it's like they're not tested, they're not safe, and it's true. Like, a lot of pin bindings aren't third-party verified. Right. So there's a few. There is the rotation 14, 12. Those are so, so there is sort of like a safety element there. Like, the shift would be, I guess, maybe safer than the Superlight 150 for releases as well. But I've just never had that issue with the pin binding that it doesn't release. It's always been the opposite, that it does release. I don't want it to.
Right.
So I'm not thinking about it.
Are you skiing it locked? Like, how often are you skiing it locked?
I do ski it locked when I'm in when it's really hard back, then I'm going fast. I can ski it locked for Couloir on Svalbard now, where it was like very steep. And also, if my tails are hitting the edge of the couloirs, then I'm skiing fast, because then that really knocks the heel piece out. So then I'll lock it. Like in a tiny, like the Couloir and WAVY 1, that was like the really fast one. I skied it locked, and then I did it for one Couloir and WAVY 2. But other than that, I don't ski them locked. And that's also a point I would really like to stress. Like, everything I've been saying about pin bindings in this conversation has been pin bindings unlocked, because a pin binding locked is like a DIN 30, I think.
Yeah.
So it's
just inconsistent too. Like, it removes all the consistency of the binding.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just not, I've had my friend Mina Rimaki in Chamonix, she had a fall and like almost like lost her leg because of a locked pin binding. So it's like, I would not recommend that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's important for people here, especially in New England, because like where I am, the conditions are always firm and garbage. So like people skiing pin bindings often will run them locked, and it's just like you're kind of choosing your battle a little bit there, because obviously safety wise, not a great idea to ski it locked all the time, but at the same time, you're skiing on like the biggest failure to pin bindings is how much the vibration on the snow, like sometimes that like hard pack vibration is what blows you out, even if your forward pressure is correct and you're in ski mode. That's it's like this double-edged sword, I feel like, sometimes on the conditions that we have out here.
Yeah, and that is the problem, and that's what I've at least felt now, and that's the reason I got on the DNFit last year when the guy sold me on the whole rotation thing.
Yeah,
that it keeps the retention, or it creates something that feels like elasticity in the binding, which is what you have in the regular bindings, where your boot can travel more in the binding before it's knocked out, and it keeps you in there harder. But my advice to people would be like, just try, you know. Like don't knock it till you tried it. What I do on new bindings, I do butters.
Yeah,
I find that butters on hardpack is kind of like the most kind of stress, at least for the heel piece.
Yeah.
You can do a ski it hard on the pist. Ski it hard on the pist, where if you fall, you'll kind of just slide. And like if you do that, just like then it's easier to trust it if you've had the binding in a high stress situation. Because yeah, at least to me, they've been very good the past 10 years. And but it's always the same story. People are in the comments like, oh, are you doing this on pin bindings? They must be locked. No, I don't believe they're unlocked. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep preaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Last thing, and then I'll let you get out of here. What you've been working with Black Crows for a long time now. I do kind of want to touch on them because I think the product that they make is excellent, but I also feel like they keep the product the same a lot longer than people. So what do you ever get bored of the product? Like, and that's a genuine question, I guess. And it's not just like, I'm not looking for a specific answer, I guess, but I always look at the wall and I'm like, okay, these look very similar to last year's, right? Even when they change the ski year to year, right? You look at a lot of the other companies and you're like, they're trying something very new, I guess, every 2 years, it feels like, where I feel like Black Crows keeps their cycle the same, maybe every 3 or 4 years. Is that just me looking at it? Is it just because they keep the graphic the same? Like, what's the story for you? Is it still exciting to ski on the skis year after year if they don't change?
Well, I mean, I do get curious, of course, like when I see a new design come out here and there. Like I've never skied a ski with like the sort of like the boat tip that,
Yeah.
I think Armada has one, Atomic has one. That could be cool to try.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like Black Rose generally has like something new happening every season. Like last season, they came out with the Myers Core,
It's a cool
which
ski.
is like I guess it has like a rockered carving ski,
Yeah.
center mounted, which was so fun and like gave me a whole new experience of skiing the pist. And then for the backcountry, to me, it's more like about reliability in a way. Like, to me, the worst thing I do is to get a new pair of boots, for example. I hate getting new boots because I want the boots that I've been in, that I know the feeling of and that I know work. And it's the same with binding, same with kind of all kinds of gear. I guess I'm a little conservative there in a way, because the most important thing for me is that I can trust my gear when I'm on top of a line. So if I have a design, like I've skied the Anima, it's been a few changes there, but it's been pretty much the same ski the past, I don't know, 8 years, 6 years. And I love that I have 6 years of experience with it. And my relationship to this ski is so strong. We're like an old married couple. Sometimes we have our differences, but I know we love each other and that I can trust them.
Yeah.
So it's, and I think that's I guess that's it. And then also, like we touched on it before, like I honestly don't think there has been like that much innovation since like Julian came up with the camber rocker thing.
Right.
Like he made the JJ back in the day, and
right.
And that's like, and he's designing the skis for Black Rose now. Julian Renier, shout out to you, good man. And yeah, so I don't really I haven't seen so far stuff in other skis that I am really missing like that. And there is actually like some stuff, but we're working on a new model now that I think maybe will solve that. But yeah, that's the other thing. Like I have input. Like they're really based on, like they want to make the best ski for us, the athletes, and they ask us like, what do we want? What are we missing?
Yeah.
And when we ask for it, we generally get it. And I guess maybe what you've seen in the variety of skis the past years is that we've been pretty happy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's a good point. It's funny. Michelle Parker has a new show coming out on our network too. So like she'll have her own podcast that we'll put out. But one of the things that I've heard her mention about that was my subtle plug because it's going to come out the next day after we talk about.
Oh yeah, Michelle, happy for you.
But one of the things that she always says is like I trust riding on an Anima. Like that's the ski that I like that ski a lot. Like if anybody asks me what they should get and they just want like a general like wider all mountain ski, like that's what I push because you can trust it. And like I've heard her talk about it a couple times, and she's just like, I really love this, and it feels genuine. Sometimes you hear skiers talk about the gear that they're on, and you're like, okay, like you're getting paid to say this. But every time I hear somebody talk about a Black Rose product, it sounds like they actually mean it.
Yeah, and I haven't been on. I mean, I haven't really skied any other skis the past. I don't know if it's 8 years or what it is, but I have been happy. Like I haven't. Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I'm compromising. And I don't know how to say this without sounding like a douche, but I have been able to like I've been approached by other ski brands, you know?
Right.
And it's like I'm forced to use Black Rose. And like same with Michelle, you know, she's the legend of the sport. And it's definitely, yeah, I wouldn't be on a ski brand where I felt like it was a compromise for my skiing.
Right.
Because that would kind of defeat the whole thing. But yeah, I think there's yeah, it's exciting with new stuff, but being able to trust your gear is the most important. And I think that's the reason people have problems with pin bindings going back to that. Right. I trust it. I know it works. I trust the pin bindings like I trust my Anima. Right. But yeah, so I guess that's it. And also coming back to the graphics again, like they're pretty similar, but I think also that's like part of what's cool. What I like about the brand, like there's a few things I like about Black Rose. They're fun guys. They throw electronica festivals on top of a Guy de Midi at 4,000 meters. And there's the culture. We've been doing a web series. I think it's like episode 19 about people in ski culture, you know, from pro skiers to wine farmers who are like torn between the mountain and the vineyards and where will they live. And yeah, there's all this stuff, but then there's also like this graphical language, this visual language that Yorgo is the like graphic designer or like head of graphic design. Has made it, and it's very consistent, you know, like you can look at anything and it's like, oh, that's Black Rose.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. And I think that like as a brand, that's kind of unique. Like if you look at the graphics from some other brands, you wouldn't be able to tell it's the same brand without the logo on it.
For sure.
Like over years, you know what I mean? And you don't have that with Black Rose at all. But then again, yes, it's hard to trust people that are paid to, you know. I'm releasing like a gear video now as well, along with my series where I'm like talking about gear and skiing. And I'm starting it out and I'm like looking around. And I'm like, yeah, I have actually been paid. Or like all of this gear is sponsored.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, right? Because like you use it because you trust it, but also because you get paid. So like, yeah. Where's the line?
A conflict of it. It's biased for sure.
Huge. It's huge. Like I do the same thing. We just put out a gear guide, and like in the gear guide, I like have to open with the fact that I'm like, look, Fisher pays us, so like keep that in mind for every review that we write on every ski. Is like that is my bias. I'm going to try to be unbiased, but there's no like that's the elephant in the room, right? Is that there's a paycheck that goes into my account from this brand.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's the way of the thing, and I think but I mean, just look at the skiing speaks for itself. Look at the all pro skiers response. Look at the footer guys. Look at Sammy. Look at Cody. Look at all these people, and it's the gear obviously works.
Yeah,
like I think that's the same, and and I think you can tell. Like if I feel like the most. How do you say? I feel like the most trustworthy like sponsor relationships are the ones that last for many years, and I feel like the people people stay with a brand for many years, is generally like they like the product, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, what bigger nod can you get to a company than like Seth Morrison skiing on those skis and just painting them black? Like, he was skiing on those, and he was skiing on blizzards, and just painting them black. Like, that's the bit, right? So that guy skis them, and they're good enough for him. I think there's a lot of people out there that should kind of take stock into that.
Yeah, for sure. There's a Stab magazine. They do surf media. They have this thing. It's called Stab in the Dark. We have all the shapers. They make the best board they can make, and then some surfer like Dan Reynolds or whoever ride boards, and they have to choose which board is the best. It would be kind of fun to do that in the ski world, kind of like anonymize, make the tip and tail anonymous, and then just like have them all black, and then like actually do like a blind test. But
this is a good idea. I'm gonna steal this idea.
Do it.
Ethan's in the booth right now. Ethan, we're stealing this idea.
Yeah. Hi, Ethan. How are you?
He just got. I don't even know if he's plugged in. He's probably taking it. Sometimes I look back there and he's taking a nap during conversation. So it's we never know.
You're fully like Joe Rogan style here. You got a dude helping out.
We need a real guy. Yeah. No, I don't know about that, but it's definitely like it's nice to have. I'm not good with technology, so like if I do this by myself, half the time the audio's fucked up. The video definitely could not happen by myself. It's I'm not physically or mentally capable to do this kind of stuff. And editing, no chance. That's one of the things I like about what you do so much is you're doing the whole bit, right? I have no ability to do that. If I try to edit a video, my brain shuts off.
I have a lot of help though. I have help with grading and audio, and Jonas, the guy I work with, he like logs everything, like he makes the folder structure and everything. So I'm able to go and then just put the story together. So I got to give a big shout out to Jonas and Charlie and Rasmus and Mikko Pekka, all you guys. Thank you. Those are like the guys behind everything.
They make it happen. They're the Ethans in the booth. I like that.
Yeah. We all got to have our Ethan in the booth.
You have to. Yeah. I mean, you need it. Otherwise it doesn't work. Where can people find both films when they come out? Where can people find the series? I'm assuming it's all on the YouTube page, but what is the YouTube page? Where can people find you on social? The whole bit.
So I'm Nikolai Schirmer on all social, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. It's spelled weirdly, but I'm sure you can get it in the podcast description.
Yeah.
And the film will actually come out on the Black Rose. WAVY 2 will come out on the Black Rose YouTube channel, and also on Altibox if you're in Norway. You can watch it as a series. So it'll come actually out earlier if you're in Norway, like in October.
Okay, cool. I love that. Thank you, as always. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the time very much.
Yeah, thank you. Cool to see where this podcast has come. Great cool. Things are happening.
It's been a couple years. This is year 3 in a row for us, so I appreciate it. You get to see some progression, hopefully. So.
Yeah, good to see that. Have a good day, I guess.